beings, and welcoming into this space of being. Just wanted to come in to share because there are obviously many things going on in the fields. This past week has been incredibly intense as we are, of course, being pushed to shift our lives as we come in more fully into the density, as we come in to look forward into the mission planes and into the next stage of work, and looking out into the physical realms and seeing what does and does not match where we are needing to be. So, of course, this comes through a lot of clearing, a lot of either getting rid of things within the house, feeling the need to move, feeling the need to clean and clear out the clutter of our lives. And of course, we experience different degrees of this to the levels that we have either been reordering through the light field and now we need to reorder through the physicality to match, or which also goes hand in hand, places where we have been hiding and avoiding, not necessarily intentionally, but because we've been so focused on other parts of our lives as well. And when we reorder internally, there can be this moment of suddenly feeling like we're waking up, or suddenly finally being present and needing to get back into life, which for star seeds is happening in a totally different way now. It's really this feeling of just landing and just arriving here, and almost as if we've had these walk-in experiences, if we feel like a totally different soul now, and things have just got to change and shift and shake up in order to feel like we are where we need to be. And it comes through as these feelings of anxiety and pressure, that what we are feeling internally is not matching what we are experiencing externally. So this is this grand sort of rotating feeling through the field of needing to shift to match our proper orientations. So all of that combined with the extremely dark energies that are releasing now through the earth, through the elemental fields. I've been picking up on a lot of activity actually through the Illuminati and the Vatican, which is not normally something that I connect into, but it has been coming up extremely strongly, very heavy within the field. So releasing out a lot of these things in relation to, of course, these root energies, which through the union oftentimes goes back to sacred sexuality and sexuality in general, and all the ways that this has been used and distorted, because what that is essentially is the act of creation and the creational codes and the way that this has been hijacked and distorted. It's as if we have the original story and then someone comes in and they scatter all of the words, they scatter all of the energy lines, and they rearrange them so that the story itself is barely comprehensible, or not comprehensible at all. It starts to look like a completely different story. And of course, that's essentially what it is like to reorder through the light field. We trace all of these energy lines through the body to all these points, and it can appear as if we are looking at one thing when it turns out it's something completely different. So this feeling sometimes of running around in circles, things that we thought we have healed, things we thought we have cleared, but each time we go deeper, we find another connection point. We open through a different gate into a different dimension. We find something else that we can connect into to continue to clear. So it feels completely overwhelming at times right now, because this is really this huge flooding of a wash through the field. And really it's an alchemical transformation, so that it does feel like it's as if you're pouring in substances or chemicals, in the sense of base chemical formulas, right? The elements into the field that are so unfamiliar. It feels extremely uncomfortable at times, as if almost we are being poisoned. But it's because it's such an extreme change within ourselves as a human. Dosho shiki ato yacho. Okay, so just allowing this to release through the fields. Osho hakoya chana hokoya. As we start to look at unions and we start to understand deeper and deeper through the twin flame templates what has been occurring, a lot of what I'm seeing through the group work that I do in the evening groups, the presence of union, is that coming in through the masculine. So as we release out of these very dark energies through the masculine fields, because that's where it's being held. It's not necessarily to say that it's the masculine that's dark. We hold these components, each the feminine and masculine, but that because they hold the structure and the rooting into the earth, that this is where it tends to clear from. And as we're clearing, as we're bringing in new structure and new support for the mission work, we also have to make room. So that means we have to clear out the old. So all of this happening within divine order, in conjunction with divine plan, but this is not to say that it doesn't feel uncomfortable. So as we witness these divine masculine structures coming in, which are operating really as a walk-in nature into the fields, we're also seeing through the black and the white tones, so the polarization through the linear time constructs and how this has played into the unions. If we look at the origin of these tones, so the primordial tones and then the white flame ignition as driver through the rendering system. So how do we bring in potential, the potential of creation, the potential energy of creation into the fields? We have the original base tone and then the tones which would render into the physical through the white flame. But what we start to see is that the unions and the twin flame unions, obviously the codes of the earth, would operate out of sphere being nature. So when we come into the earth, we see this linear nature through the polarity, through the black and the white, but that's really obviously a distortion through the spheres. So if we look at the sphere and we look at a compass at this polar array, so the 360-degree array through the tone spectrum, so going from black to white and all of the colors that would be in between that. And if we look at the spheres, we start to see these points within the spheres where the spirals would have come in to essentially pull out the energy into these linear constructs. So the sphere itself had become corrupted through the spiral energies. And this is really where the distortion and the building of these false histories started occurring. So what does this mean for unions? Essentially, it's to know that we're not resolving union through the polarity, that the polarity was a horizontal support, a horizontal stepping stone to render into materiality. But yet this is where so much of the distortion and the hijacking would come in. So to know that we're not resolving through the polarity, but coming back to the realization that it is the unity of the one, or the sphere nature, that we are returning back into. So lifting out of the polarity. And of course, in accordance with our missions and what we hold in our fields, there are things to resolve within polarity. That's not to say we can just bypass and lift out of it and say, okay, I understand. I'm going to go here into my spherical natures. Oftentimes there is work to be accomplished, but through the mind that we begin to understand that we've given such a bad rap to these false light energies, to these dark energies. And yet what we start to see through the feminine fields is that this false light was really a tool. As we came here as starseeds on our missions to recover, reconnaissance missions really, to recover the original codes, that we use this false light as a beacon of attraction to the darkness, so that within the divine masculine, wherever these dark energies were being held, it was a connection point. So these magnetic pulls that we have felt through the twin flame fields, there was a purpose to them. Of course, as we know, we forget, things get distorted. The magnitude of the energies are much stronger than we would have expected within the densities on the physical level. So through the human embodiment, it's been much more challenging, because that just is the nature of life through the human experience, as we get pulled out and distracted by the need to simply support ourselves and exist and live here. So being pulled in many, many different directions, if that was our only task, was to unify through the twin flame templates, it may not have been so difficult, but to have to also survive within these energies can make it very daunting. So again, just recapping the intense pressure that has been occurring this week. We have an immense amount of darkness. We're starting to understand through these polarized natures of being where we truly lie through all of this. So returning back to these spherical natures of being. And then if we look at the spheres, the array that we hold through here. So this just brings me back to materiality. And when I was in school, we did a project called The Nature of Materials. And this is to look at differing building materials. So we can have different elements such as steel or concrete or wood, and each of them they have specific qualities to them. Some materials are good in tension and not in compression, and vice versa. And some materials are good in both aspects, in both respects. So how can we combine these materials efficiently? How can we combine them in interesting and unexpected ways? How can we be more creative in the ways that we utilize the materials to render through our creative potentials, to best express our inner energy field, to best express who we truly are, so that each of us would come up with a different expression. If we were given different materials and told to explore, we would each present a different project through our own understanding. So even though the building blocks are similar or exactly the same, we can combine them through our own intricate understanding of the world around us or the world we have come from. So the different natures of our ancestry and our lineage through the stars, so that we all come in as unique expressions of the one source energy. And that we start to not only array through our own fields, but through the greater collective fields as unique expressions. So just tuning into these angelic tones now that are coming in through the union plane. So it's a big clearing through the heart space, through the twin flame templates, as we connect into the angelic harmonies, through the resonant base chamber. So this is almost like it reminds me of when you're panning for gold or sifting through the stones, using the water and the screens to shift or sift out the aggregate densities within the fields. So just coming internal, connecting in through the breath, in through the ribs, breathing in deeply as we open through the golden arrays of the sphere beings, through source natures. So connecting into the planes of the Ra, always returning to source for this essence of rehabilitation and resolve through the fields. It's as if we turn back to the source for acknowledgement, for reminder of who we are. It's that feeling of connecting back in with the parent through the child form, looking into the eyes, witnessing the acceptance, witnessing of who you are. That is what the I am expression exudes. Anosho-shohokoya. It's connecting in through the head. Shokai hoya. This is also what we're starting to experience as well through this deeper structure, through the masculine fields, the shifting through the biology of how we connect in with the energies. So running these root channels all the way through the body, through the field, so that this starts to represent through the tree of life as the root that feeds and connects in to source through the entire field, not just at specific points within the body, that all connects in and speaks in through source, in through the field, fully nurtured and nourished through these advanced support systems. So if you're looking for additional information on any of these energies that I was speaking of, in terms of these dark releases through the masculine, I do have an additional share through the Star Wisdom Travelers on my website, and also some schematics from the group sessions that I will begin to start posting there as well with additional information. So you can always check that out if you're looking for more in-depth information. Okay, we just start to step back here as we seal out. Thank you for sharing, and much love and blessings. And so it is.